In despotic governments, as well as in all the monarchies of Europe, standing armies are kept up to execute the commands of the prince or the magistrate, and are employed for this purpose when occasion requires. But they've always proved the destruction of liberty and are abhorrent to the spirit of a free republic. What are standing armies? You just got a damn army standing around? Well, then the king is just going to use the army to, hey, go invade those people, go attack those people, oh, go oppress our own people. So when we formed the Constitution, we very much did not want standing armies. We did not want standing armies. There's that provision where you can only appropriate funds for the military every 2 years, and you have to re-up on that every 2 years. There's also the Second Amendment, which talks about in order to provide the security of a free state, you need to have a well-regulated militia. So standing armies have always proved the destruction of liberty and are abhorrent to the spirit of a free republic. In England, where they depend upon the Parliament for their annual support, they've always been complained of as oppressive and unconstitutional, and are seldom employed in executing the laws, never except on extraordinary occasions and then under the direction of a civil magistrate. A free republic will never keep a standing army to execute its laws. It must depend upon the support of its citizens. But when a government is to receive its support from the aid of the citizens, it must be so constructed as to have the confidence, respect, and affection of the people, men who, upon the call of the magistrate, offer themselves to execute the laws, are influenced to do it either by affection to the government or from fear. Either they love the government or they're scared. Either way, they obey the magistrates, the prince, the monarchy, to execute the laws. Where a standing army is at hand to punish offenders, every man is actuated by the latter principle, from fear, and therefore when the magistrate calls, will obey. But where this is not the case, the government therefore must rest for its support upon the confidence and respect which the people have for their government and laws. So I'm doing a quick little book report. There is so much in this Anti-Federalist papers. I got another book. I got several books, actually, just the constitutional papers, like all the founding documents of America. So you got, the Constitution, Magna Carta, the rights of man, a whole bunch of shit, right? So the biggest thing is the Federalist Papers. So you'll have a book that has the Constitution, and it'll have, all the Federalist Papers. There's, 84 of the Federalist Papers. So there was the Articles of Confederation and went to the Constitution. And then the Federalist Papers essentially is the propaganda for the brand new Constitution, right? For the brand new Constitution, which is going to elect George Washington. We had like 10 leaders before George Washington, kind of presidents. They were more the president of the assembly or of the convention. They were the chair. So the person who is the chairperson, well, that's the president, right? But it was under the Articles of Confederation. George Washington was the first president under the U.S. Constitution of 87 is when they wrote the thing, but then they're going to ratify it 1789, right? And then he's going to become president then. So this is from Brutus, October 18th, 1787, Brutus. And a lot of these papers, even in the Federalist Papers, they would be written by different names, right? By different Roman names. And why are they, speaking about, why do they have the name Brutus? Well, who was Brutus? Let's talk about who Brutus was. Brutus is a Roman. And Brutus, Marcus Junius Brutus, was a Roman politician, orator, and the most famous of the assassins of Julius Caesar. After being adopted by a relative, he used the name Quintus Servilius Caepio Brutus, which was retained as his legal name. He is often referred to as simply Brutus. So et tu, Brute, right? Julius Caesar is going to get stabbed by a bunch of senators. And why did they stab Julius Caesar. Well, here I got the Columbian orator, and this is speech of Cassius to his collected forces after the death of Caesar. And I'll just get to the part here where he talks about, we conceived that in presuming to confer the honors of the Roman Republic, Julius Caesar encroached on the prerogative of the Roman people. Prerogative. The king likes to use the word prerogative. Well, why do I want to, quarter all my standing army in your all's houses? Well, it's my prerogative. I'm the king. I want my soldiers to quarter in your houses. It's my prerogative. So what I like about that quote is that he's saying it's the prerogative of the Roman people. The king's got a prerogative, but the people have a prerogative as well. And insulted the authority of the Roman Senate. Caesar had canceled the laws, and he overturned the constitution of his country. He usurped all the powers of the Commonwealth, set up a monarchy, and himself afflicted to be a king. This, our ancestors, at the expulsion of Tarquin, bound themselves and their posterity by the most solemn oaths and by the most direful imprecations never to endure. We're not going to have a king anymore, says Rome. The same obligation has been entailed upon us as a debt by our fathers, and we have been faithfully paid and discharged it, have performed the oath, and averted the consequences of failure from ourselves and from our posterity. Something about Scipios and Pompey and something else. So that's just to let you know that what is Cassius saying? He's saying that he's sitting there acting like a damn king. He canceled the laws. He overturned the Constitution. He usurped all the powers of the Commonwealth, and he set up a monarchy. He made himself a king. And when Julius Caesar made himself a king, then the senators said, no, Julius Caesar, you can't do that. So why would the Anti-Federalist papers, there was Publius. A lot of the Federalist papers was written by Publius. And who is Publius? Well, Publius is, a pseudonym used by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay to write the 85 Federalist Papers. There's actually 85 Federalist Papers. I stand corrected. Between October 1787 and May 1788. So just a flurry of letters are being written in just, 6-7 months. So Publius was chosen to evoke the name of Publius Valerius Publicola, one of the founders of the Roman Republic, suggesting a connection to the ideals of republicanism and a commitment to the people. So that's who Publius Valerius Publicola is. Publicola. Come along, you belong. Feel the fizz of Publicola. So Publius, they're going to say Publius, but they're going to say he's the one that founded the Republic, and then Julius Caesar was changing the Republic into an empire. And that's why Brutus and Cassius and a lot of these guys didn't like it. So why would this Anti-Federalist? I'm not for sure who is Brutus. I bet you Chat GPT knows who Brutus was. I'll get to that question here in a second, but first, Publius, one of the 4 Roman aristocrats who led the overthrow of the monarchy and became a Roman consul, the colleague of Lucius Junius Brutus in 509 BC, traditionally considered the first year of the Roman Republic. Well, there's another Brutus there. So maybe they were talking about Brutus, who was one of the assassins of Caesar. Or maybe they're talking about a different founder of the Roman Republic. That could be it too. Sincerely, a founder of the Roman Republic, right? So Lucius Junius Brutus was the semi-legendary founder of the Roman Republic and traditionally one of its first consuls in 509 BC. He was reputedly responsible for the expulsion of his uncle, the Roman king Tarquinius Superbus, after the suicide of Lucretia, And that was after the king had raped her. So Tarquinius, the king, raped Lucretia. She killed herself, and then they overthrew the king, ran him out of Dodge, got him out of town, and then they established the Commonwealth, the Republic, right? So the Romans threw out their king, and then they talked about a constitution as well. Who is Brutus? Do we know who Brutus was? Who is the Anti-Federalist who went by the pseudonym of Brutus? It's widely believed to be Robert Yates, a New York judge and delegate to the Constitutional Convention of 1787. Robert Yates left the convention early due to his opposition to a strong centralized government, which was reflected in the series of essays he wrote under the name Brutus between 1787 and 1788. These essays, published in New York newspapers, criticized the proposed U.S. Constitution, particularly its lack of a Bill of Rights and the potential for federal overreach. While the authorship was never definitively proven, historians generally attribute the Brutus essays to Robert Yates. So there you go. Let's get back to business, okay? So that's just one passage. I just got 3 passages here I was going to read. So let's just go ahead and get to it. This is Patrick Henry. We'll save that for last. Let's talk about immigration. So here we have Citizenship for Immigrants, August 9th. So this is 1787. This is notes from the Federal Convention. And you have Governor Morris, who wanted to change the number of years that you need to be qualified, number of years of citizenship that you needed to be as an American to qualify for senator, from 4 years to 14 years. Because he said that we have a danger of admitting strangers into our public councils. And then Mr. Pinckney had seconded him. Now, James Madison had mentioned that he didn't want to put any tincture of illiberality to the Constitution. I would say constitutionalist that's classical liberalism, right? It'd be nice to actually to do any of the things that the Constitution was supposed to do. The preamble goes ahead and ties us to specific end objects. Why do we have a U.S. government? What do we even have a U.S. government for? Well, we're going to perfect the Union. We're going to establish justice. We're going to ensure domestic tranquility. We're going to provide for the common defense. We're going to protect our freedoms. We're also going to promote the general welfare. That's the 6th thing. So if you're a good American, you walk outside of your house and you say, well, today I'm going to perfect the Union. And how are you going to perfect the Union? Well, you're going to get on the phone and you're going to, get on emails and social media, and you're going to talk to all your friends to all the 50 states. You got friends in all 50 states because you're trying to perfect the Union. Right? So if your boss calls you up and say, hey, how come you didn't show up for work? Hey, boss, I'm trying to perfect the Union here. What the hell are you doing? Huh? Dr. Franklin was not against a reasonable time, but he would be very sorry to see anything like illiberality inserted into the Constitution. The people of Europe are friendly to this country, even in the country with which we have been lately at war. We have now, and had during the war, a great many friends, not only among the people at large, but in both houses of Parliament. In every other country in Europe, all the people are our friends. We found in the course of the Revolution that many strangers served us faithfully, and that many natives took part against their country. When foreigners, after looking about for some other country in which they can obtain more happiness, give a preference to ours, it is a proof of attachment which ought to excite our confidence and affection. Which country should we go to that'll help our happiness out? Let's go to America. Well, they look up to our country. They think our country will help their happiness and esteem. And so therefore, that should excite our confidence and affection, says Benjamin Franklin. Here's a quote by Patrick Henry. And this is June 7th, 1788 speech. This Constitution, says Patrick Henry, is said to have beautiful features. But when I come to examine these features, sir, they appear to me horridly frightful. Among other deformities, it's got an awful squinting. It squints towards monarchy. It squints towards a monarchy. And does not this raise indignation in the breast of every American? Your president may easily become a king. Your president may easily become a king. Your Senate is so imperfectly constructed that your dearest rights may be sacrificed by what may be a small minority, and a very small minority may continue forever unchangeably this government, although horridly defective. Where are your checks in this government? Your strongholds will be in the hands of your enemies. It is on a supposition that our American governors shall be honest, that all the good qualities of this government are founded, but its defective and imperfect construction puts in their power to perpetrate the worst of mischiefs, should they be bad men. And, sir, when not all the world from the eastern to the western hemisphere blame our distracted folly in resting our rights upon the contingency of our rulers being good or bad, show me that age and country where the rights and liberties of the people were placed on the sole chance of the rulers being good men without a consequent loss of liberty. I say that the loss of that dearest privilege has ever followed with absolute certainty every such mad attempt. If your American chief be a man of ambition and abilities, how easy is it for him to render himself absolute? The army is in his hands, and if he be a man of address, it will be attached to him, and it will be the subject of meditation with him to seize the first auspicious moment to accomplish his design. And, sir, will the American spirit solely relieve you when this happens? I would rather infinitely, and I'm not sure of this convention or of this opinion, have a king, lords, and commons than a government so replete with such insupportable evils. If we make a king, we may prescribe the rules by which he shall rule his people and interpose such checks as shall prevent him from infringing them. But the president in the field, at the head of his army, will prescribe the terms on which he should master so far that it will puzzle any American at his neck from under the galling yoke. I cannot with patience think of this yet. If he ever violates the laws, one of two things will happen. He shall come to the head of his army to carry everything before him, or he will give bail, or do what his chief justice will order him. If he be guilty, will not the recollection of his crimes teach him to make one push for the American throne? Will not the immense difference between being master of everything and being ignominiously tried and punished powerfully excite him to make this bold push? But, sir, where is the existing force to punish him? Can he not at the head of his army beat down every opposition? Away with your president. We shall have a king. The army will salute him monarch. Your militia will leave you in assist in making him king and fight against you. And what have you to oppose this force? What will then become of you and your rights? Will not absolute destiny do? Here Henry strongly and pathetically expatiated on the probability of the president's enslaving America and the horrible consequences that must result. So we're not going to quote what he said. Then he talks about elections right after that. So three passages. That's the Anti-Federalist papers right there. Nice little book, little quirky book, right? Hey, I'm a little quirky, look at me. And then this edited by Ralph Ketcham. So you got constitutional convention debates, Anti-Federalist papers. I wish people actually, I remember going to college and I was, supposed to read these Federalist papers, and that was so damn boring I fell asleep, and he kind of made fun of me. Like, he doesn't even institutions to always be perpetuated, then we would teach not just our children, but on the pulpits and in the churches and in our schools and everywhere else on the streets, a love for our nation's laws. And come from a place of oppression, when I learned that the preamble, the whole point of the American Constitution is to protect our freedoms, that kind of opened up a whole nother world to me. Furthermore, think of the history of the damn thing. We barely won our revolution. We barely got a constitution, and then we barely got a bill of fucking rights. So we barely got our fucking freedoms. We barely got our freedoms. It took 100 something years before they even had those 1983 cases to where you could actually file a civil claim in order to make sure you're free of help. That's the whole of the U.S. government. And so, if we want institutions to always grow, then we would know more about our government. And even though a president, maybe they kind of take dictatorial powers, maybe they're even allowed to, the Constitution even allows it. But they only get 4 years, they only get 8 years, right? They only get 2 years total. They also only have enumerated powers, so they only have specific powers. Only had involved the Louisiana Purchase, but before he did so, he's like, I don't think the Constitution allows me to do this. He had a good ass fucking deal, a bunch of cheap ass land he could buy for pennies on the goddamn dollar, and he's like, I'm not for sure if the Constitution allows me to do this, because you have to have an enumerated power. The powers of the president, the powers of the Congress, and the Supreme Court are specifically spelled out. And enumerated power says that if your power isn't spelled out in the Constitution, then you don't have those powers. We got bicameralism, we got federalism, we got elections and Constitution. We have propounded the Constitution as a contract between the government and the people, and then we got the Bill of Rights. The contract says that we all, as individuals, have a right to speak and a right to peacefully assemble, a right to kick soldiers out of our homes, the right to remain silent, the right to be free from double jeopardy, the right to a grand jury indictment if you're killed a felony. These are all guaranteed by our Constitution. So when Lincoln said that we should love our nation's laws, I think we should love our nation's. The Constitution is one of the dirty documents ever. We got the longest running active Constitution in the entire world. People still debate it and talk today. It is still written in such a way that it's still the governing document, even in this modern age, this, internet, technological, AI, robot age. But I wonder, like, TV and TikTok and low attention spans, because they had to read. I mean, what else could they do for entertainment? When I read Brutus, I guess they said it was that Robert Yates. It's almost like Robert Yates read the Constitution, read about all the, three branches of government, new powers, bicameralism, and he kind of was like the thread and the needle, kind of like the impossible shot of the Luke Skywalker into the Death Star. It's like he read the document and he saw all of the loopholes. He read the document and he saw all of the gaping errors. And so when he wrote about it, he wasn't just saying, oh, this damn document, it's fucking crap. He was saying, hey, this part here allows tyranny, and this part here, you think it's going to stop it, and so what am I saying? I'm saying go read the Anti-Federalist papers, because it's awesome. I think, who else likes to just sit here and dwell on the Constitution? Like, the migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808. Well, that's got to do with slavery. What the fuck did they put that shit in there for? The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in case of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. Capitation. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. No tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state. No preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obliged to enter, clear, or pay duties in another. No money shall be drawn from the treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be punished from time to time. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office or profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. I mean, I wish more Americans would actually just kind of meditate on the Constitution. Meditate on the preamble. I mean, that's one sentence. There's a lot of fucking Americans that can't even identify the three branches of government, let alone even say what the first fucking sentence is. Instead of pledging allegiance to the flag, we should pledge allegiance to the preamble of the Constitution. So yeah, go out and get your copy of the Anti-Federalist papers today, and then tell me, do your own little book report. Tell me what quotes. Patrick Henry is such a beast. He is such a beast. Patrick Henry is.